happiness in your mind?
Yeah, two really good questions. And what makes that easy? First off, I want to say it again, Ed, and I know your listeners feel this way, but thank you for all you do for the world, man. You said some really kind things about me, and I feel that same way about you. There's some people who want to do it for just the significance or just the exposure, and I know where your heart is. Your heart is to serve, and that's why people are attracted to you. That's why your followers love and adore you, because you're really doing it for the right reasons. So it's an honor to be your friend, and I love all you're doing. Here's what I believe, Ed, when it comes to happiness, and why it's easy for me to talk about this is because, like you, I have a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old, and I have a little 18-month-old, right? So I have these conversations with my kids a lot about happiness and what's the difference between fulfillment and success, or lots of money and happiness, right? Because we both know, and I'm not going to say anything that's new to anybody listening, success and money without fulfillment and happiness is the most shallow place you could ever live on this earth, right? And I share with my kids that I believe happiness comes from stretching ourselves. Now, there's a million answers I can give, but if we're not stretching and we're not growing, I mean, Ed, how many families do you know that or people that you know that are trust fund kids, and I don't mean that in a bad way. My kids are going to end up doing something with what I do, but have everything they want, but aren't happy at all, right? It's like you hear so many times a trust fund child will do too many drugs or not happy or multiple relationships, because I don't think they're stretching themselves. They're not finding a way to be hungry for something. And I think we all have to be hungry for what's next. You hear a million times, if you're not climbing, you're sliding. If you're not growing, you're dying. But it's not just words. Like, as two friends talking, I know that I get to appreciate and love life so much. Of course, you want to be passionate about what you do. You want to look into a bigger future. You want a compelling future. But the fact of the matter is, our growth comes from stretching, conquering our fears, right? We all know that our next level lives on the other side of the thing we fear the most. And I think when you take on things that are fearful, you move forward courageously, even though you're scared to death. Courage isn't a lack of fear. Courage is you're moving forward because you're afraid anyway. And during that journey, during that taking that courageous action, during the failure, during the time when your friends and family think you're a nut job, or you should be happy with what you have, or that job that you have is you should just stay there because that's what the norm wants. When you step outside of that, when you fail a little, when you stretch yourself, it's those moments that you stop and turn around and realize that you took uncomfortable action. You moved forward when there was no sign of evolving as a man, as a woman, as a husband, as a wife, as a father, as a leader. And I think at this phase of my life, I see that all the uncomfortableness that allowed me to get here was actually the thing that built my character.
Yeah. Me too. What if you've done a lot of that, like you have, like I have? So there's also people listening to go, hey man, I've done a lot of that, and you know what? I'm not sure what the next thing is for me. There's been a lot of stretching in my life, but now I'm at this stage where I have achieved a level of comfort. See, I think that stretching thing sometimes is easier. It's almost like the guy trying to become the heavyweight champion of the world. It's one thing to get there, right? How hungry you are to get there. So that being said, that I find that to be true as well. But what if someone says to you, hey, listen, I want to stretch, I want to grow, but I'm not sure. I get to ask this one the most for people. I'm not sure what I'm passionate about anymore. I get asked from two types of people, Dean. One, someone who's achieved. They go, look, I built my company, I sold it. Or I got my dream relationship, I'm in it. Or I never thought I'd be a millionaire, now I am. So I get it from that group who are like, okay, what do I stretch to next? And then I also get it from the vast majority of people who are like,
that in my first marriage, I looked at it through the lens of kind of like my dad did. If it worked, great. If it didn't, I'll go do my own thing. If I don't have a connection here, I'll find a connection someplace else. Here's the part where I'll share this, especially because it's Ed, is I tried to live a congruent life. I was congruent in every area of my life, but I wasn't in my relationship. Because I was unhappy, listen, let's just say it like it is. The things you do when no one's watching is really who you are. You're not who you are in front of your friends. You're not who you are in front of your parents or your children, or who you are at church, or who you are at the country club when you're having a couple scotches, or who you are at the nightclub when you let your hair down and go wild. None of those are who we are. we put on a different persona for each one of those situations. Really who we are is when no one's watching. What are our habits? What are our decisions? What are the things that we do? It's like someone saying they want to start a business. They tell her they want to start a business, but when no one's watching, they're binging out on Netflix complaining about rich people, right? Or saying they want a good relationship, but when no one's watching, you're on the phone texting someone you met 2 years ago or 5 years ago, right? And my congruency in my relationship wasn't there. And there's a million reasons for it. It could be her, could be me, could be us. We ended up being great friends, and she's still a dear friend, and we have the best relationship and co-parents on the and co-parent amazing. But when that relationship ended, Ed, I had to look in the mirror and say, if I bring this guy, doesn't matter if I meet the perfect woman who's beautiful inside and out, if I bring this guy, I'm 6 months, 6 days, 6 years away from the same crap happening again. And I had to really evaluate the man I was. And I took, again, once you take complete ownership, and I could digress a million ways, but I really feel the world has evolved there, but we're pointing fingers. It's the president. No, it's the previous president. No, it's the current president. No, it's the liberals. No, it's the conservative. It's the Democrats. It's the foreign agency. It's China. There's a million things it could be. I don't know, and I'm not giving judgment other than we can always point the finger. But I've never grown as much, I think all of us can agree, until you point the finger at the guy in the mirror. And before I met my wife, instead of trying to meet the perfect woman, I was just trying to figure out how I could be a better human. And when that happened, when I decided that in every area of my life, and I am far from perfect, just like there's none of us perfect, but what I decided and said is, I want to be a man that if my children found a way to have a private, secret video on me 24 hours a day, and they could watch that when they're older, when I'm dead and gone, and they go, wow, they could either go, wow, he was a good dad, but when no one was watching, my dad, oh my God, you believe he did that and he did that. I would love for my kids to watch that video and go, wow, dad was the same whether people were watching or not. And when I took that to my heart, I want you to hear that. Like, think about that. Think about if your kids could see a video of you when no one's watching. And maybe that's not what you want, but that was my desire, because I wanted real love in my life or none. When I went through a divorce, Ed, I was either like, I'm going to be the best version of me and I'm going to attract that other half, or I'm going to be a kick-ass single dad for the next 30 years. That's the way I looked at it. And I have to tell you, I brought a better version of me, or I created a better version, and I attracted the love of my life. And we've been together 4 or 5 years now, and it literally grows better, stronger every single day. And again, I keep moving that lighthouse to say, how can I light this woman up more? How can I make her more attracted to me? How can I make it so our intimacy is off the chart? How can I surprise her? How can I make, Tony Robbins, I love when he used to say, if you treated the end of a relationship like the beginning, there'd be no end. Right? I love that saying. So for me, my lighthouse in my relationship is, how do I treat this like I met this hot, beautiful, amazing, successful woman 3 weeks ago and I'm trying to impress her?
You know what? I got to say something to you on that too. I met Lisa several years ago, and Lisa was already a very beautiful, very confident woman. But I must tell you, I noticed the last time we were together, and by the way, tremendous amount of confidence. She's beautiful, smart, successful, by the way, in her business already. But one of the byproducts of doing what you do in your relationship is the next time I was around her, I was struck by even how much more confident she was, how much more presence she had. Because of the way that you treat her, and I've noticed this in you too, there's a piece to you that I've seen grow over the last few years, that you had peace when I met you because you were in the relationship, but it was newer. I've watched your peace and confidence grow, but I was also struck by hers. And that's one of the things, that's one of the ancillary gifts that happens when you're so intentional in a relationship like Dean and Lisa both are. You know, the other thing, brother, I was thinking about for you too, is that some of you are listening to this, like, and by the way, the video thing you said was brilliant about, and I relate because when my dad passed last year, that occurred to me. Wow, Dad's now watching everything I'm doing. Would he be proud of everything I'm doing? And it just raised my standard, right? So it's not my kid's video, it's my dad's, but it's the same principle of, if he was watching this video of yesterday, how proud would he be of his son, right? How many things in that day would I wish my dad didn't see, or that I said, or even that I thought in some cases that I could think better. But one thing that's, a lot of people are listening to this and they know they've got that thing. They're not working out like they should. Maybe they are in that text thing. Maybe it's that they don't eat the way they should. They don't make the contacts they should. They're not up as early. They got a thing, but they're winning in spite of it. right? In spite of it, they've got some winning going on. Because in spite of the fact, for many years, Dean, that you weren't as congruent as you wanted to be, you were still producing financial success.
Massively.
Yeah. But what's happened the last 4 or 5 years is your life has become a freaking rocket ship in terms of influence. You guys, Dean's been famous a long time. You go back to all the infomercial days. If you've not seen Dean or you hear this voice, it's because Dean was all over television forever. Very successful in that space, in the influence space, the real estate space, as he was not congruent in every area of his life. But man, the last 4 or 5 years. So speak to that. If you can solve that thing you got, it's like a football team who's got no running game. Man, if they could just run the football, they've already got a good passing game, their defense is good, they're a playoff team already. But if they could run the football, they're going to win the Super Bowl. There's always that thing, right? True or false?
So, okay, Ed, I love this question, and I love hanging out with you, man. And thank you for everybody listening. I know you have lots of options, so thanks for hanging out with two friends, talking about stuff where I have no idea what we were talking about. So this is really cool. Here's what I know. What happens sometimes, I'll tell you what I did for a decade. If we're going to talk about relationships, I'll be completely transparent. I thought about leaving my relationship every day of my life for 5 years. It was almost the first thing I thought about every day, not because she's a bad human in any way. It just wasn't the right fit. I'm not an advocate of divorce, but it just didn't fit. But here's what I did for years. I was financially successful. At the time, I thought I was the best dad possible, even though I wasn't showing them the best example. But I thought, I'm an engaged father. I coach Little League, coach softball. I'm there. I bring them to school, make them lunches, love them to death. I'm a great leader to my team. I'm a good friend to people who need me. So my relationship's off, and I'm not congruent. I should be freaking fortunate. So who gets it all? This is what I remember. You want it all, Dean. You want love and congruency and a good dad and financially free. And I remember just thinking, stop being greedy. If your relationship doesn't work, but really what I was doing, Ed, is I wasn't facing something because it was scary to me. It was scary leaving my kids and not thinking of not being with my kids every single day was like a shot in the gut. And I just ignored it and avoided it, and it grew. It grew to where I didn't become the man that I was supposed to be. Listen, whatever you believe in, God, the universe, I believe in God, and I believe God has created you to be bigger, better, and stronger than you currently are. No matter where you are in your life, God wants you to be the woman you were meant to be, the man you were meant to be. And if you believe in karma, whatever your beliefs are, you're meant to be more. And when you let one of those areas build, it doesn't go away. I don't care how much I try to push it down on the inside, it just kept growing. And you feel that you're looking away from it, even though it's there. And I want you to think about this. When you have to, some things are difficult. You might have to face a change of a business, a change of a business partner, change of a job, change in a relationship. The thing that you've been avoiding is growing, even though you think it's not.
Wow.
And it's like got roots, and the roots are creeping over into all areas of your life, and you don't know it, and you're working harder, stronger, faster to overcome this, and you think you're conquering it. If you're in a relationship that's not good, and maybe you go to the strip club, or you text on your phone, or you do something, and you think you're fulfilling it, you're not. You're just letting the roots grow in deeper and stronger, and you're working twice as hard to be successful, and you don't even realize it. And here's the way I looked at it. When I decided, or we decided to get a divorce, and you can use this analogy, you can tell I got some silly analogies. You can use this in any area of your life. Picture your ship is in a bay. It's calm. The water's calm. There's other great ships in the bay. The weather's kind of beautiful. It's kind of nice. But you know you're not meant to be in that bay. But man, it just has all the signs you're supposed to be there. But the only way out of that bay is you got to sail your ship through the storm that's out in the ocean, and you're watching the storm, and you're watching how turbulent it is. You're in the bay, and it's comfortable, but the only way to your next level, the only way to break through, the only way to get rid of those roots, to kind of crush that thing that's you're avoiding or afraid of, is you got to sail your ship through the storm. You see the storm, it's turbulent, the waves are high, the sky is dark, and you're not even sure because you've never navigated that territory. You don't have a map because you've never been there. You've never experienced it. And the way I looked at it when I was going through a divorce is I was so scared for my kids, not me being alone, but scared on how that would work out with my kids, that a lot of times I put my ship in the storm, it got bumpy, and I went back to the bay. And I'll tell you, when I finally said, I can't be the man I'm supposed to be, staying in this harbor, even though it's pretty and there's great people around, and it's going through that storm, going through the changes, the navigating of new territory. You're mapping out new territory on the fly, and your ship's going down, and you want to turn back 100 times. But there's this moment, and it happened to me when I went through a divorce. There was this moment where I didn't know if I could take it, and I was scared for my kids, and I was having anxiety attacks. But I want to share with you, there was this moment that my ship landed on the other side of the storm, and it was over. And I was a different human. I was a different man. I looked through a different lens. I had a new map. And I realized I wasn't meant for that other day. Yes, it was safe. Yes, it was okay. But listen, at the end of our lives, do we want to be okay? Right? And when I got to the other side, it was this fresh start. I found a way to be friends with my ex. I found a way for my kids to be safe. I found a way to replace quantity with quality with my children. I found a way to be a better version of me and attract Lisa in my life. And when those roots were gone, this is what I want to share with all of you for that one area of your life that you know what I'm talking about. As you're hearing this, you're picturing it. And you're going, wow, nobody really knows that I do that when no one's watching. Nobody knows that I'd like to fix that. No one knows that I kind of BS everybody else and say I'm working on it, but I'm not. I want to tell you, when they go away, your sailboat turns into a ship with 5 engines on it. Wow. Like my life exponentially grew. I became a better dad, a better leader, a better friend. I had more compassion, had more empathy. I replaced anger with compassion, and I just became a different person. I mean, I think I was a good man 10 years ago, but I wouldn't recognize him. I'm not the same human today. And that allowed me to go faster. And I just encourage you, you've heard this before, but your next level lives on the other side of the thing you're avoiding, the other thing you're afraid of. And Ed, I think I heard you say this, all of us, we get to learn from each other and listen to each other, and I'll go and listen to a podcast when I'll listen to a little EdMyLETT or watch it. But I remember somebody saying it may have been you. But what drives me to fix those pieces, guys, and I want you to hear this, the business that you want to scale, start, the relationship you want to fix or end, the parenting style that you've gone so long doing it one way, you think it's too late and you got to fight for it, it's worth the fight, whatever it is, the fight. I just want to tell you, I've always pictured being at the end of my life and having a conversation with God, and he said, how did it go?
Yep.
Right? Always picture that. And I always had the fear of going, well, I was in a good relationship. Right? Or things were okay. I was great at my business, great at impacting lives, and I did this, and I was a good dad. What about a relationship? It was okay. Like I picture saying that to someone where we have this creation given to us, this opportunity, and I feel like this inner disappointment where I'd want to scream and go, you know what? Damn it, can I do that over? And you don't get that chance. You don't get that chance. Like you don't get a do-over. And you want to. So I put those emotions of my future back on me. Things you've, again, already heard. And I think I heard this from you, Ed, or someone. But I heard someone put that on a whole other level. Could you imagine if God pulled out his iPhone and said, Ed, I appreciate all you've done and you've served and you give in that one area of your life. Can I play you a quick video of the man you could have been?
That's my stuff. Yeah.
That is yours. I knew I heard that from you. When I heard that from you, Ed, it changed. It honestly took what I had been telling myself my last conversation with God, and when I heard that from you, I've shared that and I feel that all the time. And if I didn't, I want to share this with you guys, and I hope it's relating to where you are in your life right now. If you're looking for what's going to drive you, what's going to take you to the next level, how do you move your lighthouse out? How do you wake up compelled again, not just want to chill? And how do you find that thrive, that energy, that zest for life again? I just want to share with you that if I didn't sail my ship out of that harbor, that safe harbor, and go through, I'm understating what I went through. I don't take aspirin. When I was going through a divorce, worrying about my kids, I was popping Xanax 3 days a week because I couldn't control my anxiety. I was drinking a glass of wine 5 nights a week because I couldn't put myself to sleep. So I'm understating how bad I was for a short period of time. When I was in the middle of that storm, I thought of turning back because I felt so crappy about myself and worried about my kids so much. But I want to tell you on the other side, I never would have experienced what real love could be like. I have love in a way that I wish it for every single one of you. There's nothing I can even share that compares to having a true soulmate that's got your back, that supports you and loves you, and you feel the same, where you don't keep score and you got each other's back. I never would have experienced that if I didn't go through the storm. And whatever that storm is for you, you have to have that compelling future, and you have to stay steadfast and realize if you go back to where you were, you'll get more of what you used to have.
Brother, that's just absolutely riveting. And that's why, I knew we would do some magic stuff today, or you would. I just didn't know to what extent. I didn't even know where it would go. But for a lot of you, that safe harbor is not your relationship, it's your job. It's where you're working right now, and you've got this dream. And by the way, that dream you keep trying to suppress, that's going to keep rising up as well. It doesn't go away.
Never.
If you wait too long, you'll get to a point where it is too late. And you're going to be watching that video of your life. It's an interesting thing. Two things occurred to me. One is that the people that I love the most, man, they have two things. I'm going to ask you a question about the second one. But one of them is, oddly, we do contemplate death more than most people. I think the contemplation of the end of your life causes you to be so present now because you know that there's a finite amount of time. It's when you don't contemplate the end that you think you have forever. Most people think everyone else is going to die. They don't think they're going to die. Everyone else is going to die. You're going to die too. There's going to be an end to this. And by the time you're at the end of it, all the you worried about, the crap that you stressed over, the people you were concerned about what they thought, the risks you didn't take, the things you didn't pursue, the pain you weren't willing to go through, you will regret worrying about those things and not going through the pain. You will regret when you watch that video. And so contemplating that end is important. The second thing of people that I love is they have a nuance that you have big time, Dean. And that is, they have a tremendous amount of humility combined with tremendous self-confidence. So people with a lot of self-confidence with no humility, we know where they're heading. They're hard to be around, and eventually their confidence gets the better of them. People with a bunch of humility but no self-confidence don't ever get around to accomplishing a whole lot in their life because they don't have the confidence they can do it. The humility part aside, because I think most people are good. Most people are humble. More people struggle with lack of self-confidence than they do lack of humility. You have both in large amounts. Do you have a formula, a theory, something you would share to build self-confidence?
That's such a great question. And I love hanging out with you, man. And I know it's different buckets, guys, but they relate to whatever area in your life, whether it's relationship, your business, scaling your business.
Success and happiness.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell you a couple. Is I really analyzed everything that robs my confidence. It's going to sound like, ooh, I'm glad you got Dean on the show. He's so smart. But when is the last time you analyzed the things that rob your confidence and decided to never do them again?
Wow.
And analyze the things that build your confidence and do more of it. If you run a company, you figure out your marketing. What's not working, do less. What's working, you do more of it. Confidence is the same way. And here's what I know. I had dyslexia in school. I wasn't good at reading. I barely got out of high school. I didn't go to a day of college. I just couldn't wait to get out of class because school was really difficult for me. And I remember judging myself by that scorecard. My friends are smarter. They can take Algebra 2. I can't even get through Algebra 1. I failed accounting. And reading a book is almost impossible for me. And I can remember looking through that lens of the things I wasn't good at. And there was a time in my life, and it's what we're taught, is to work on our weaknesses, to get better at what we're not good at. And I have to tell you, I took a concept, Ed, to a whole nother level. Here's what I say it just like it is. Screw what you're bad at. Stop doing it and get amazing at what you're already good at. So we all have a gift. We all have a unique ability. We have a core competency. And what I've known, what I've worked on, especially in the last decade of my life, is I know what I'm good at, and I just want to keep getting better and do the best at it. And I know what I suck at, because when you work on things that you're not good at, or overwhelm you, or confuse you, there's no way your confidence gets boosted. You feel inferior. So my confidence comes from knowing that if I'm communicating with someone, if I'm sharing, if I'm writing a book, if I want to impact someone's life, if you turn on a camera, I love to do all those things. I love to live in someone's heart and understand what they need and deliver it to them. But if you tell me how to do an Excel spreadsheet or figure out accounting or so many things that I'm horrible at, man, that takes away my confidence. So I'm going to tell you a quick story because it's worth this. We both have done high-level masterminds. I had high-level mastermind. I had this great guy, Tom. He was probably about 65. This is probably a decade ago. And he's sitting around and we're going through, what are the things holding you back from your next level? And this guy was already doing really well with what we were teaching him. And he's doing great with real estate. He was on his 10th property. And it gets to Tom and he says, Dean, what I need help in really is being organized. I'm so sloppy. He's like, I could clean my car and it's a mess. I can clean my home office, it's in a mess. So what I'm doing tomorrow is I'm going to Home Depot or Office Max and I'm getting filing cabinets. This is how long ago it was. And I'm going to organize and put the little labels. And he got back to me, he's like, so what do you think? And I said, Tom, can I be honest? You're going to be sloppy and disorganized for the rest of your life.
Right.
But who gives a crap? I said, Tom, I said, did your parents tell you that when you were young? And he said, yeah. I said, how about your teachers? And I watched him get real serious. Like, this was something he carried. He's like, my wife says it now. And I said, see, you're carrying this weakness. Who cares? How about this? Tom, what if he was flipping houses. I said, what if you flipped one extra house a year? And you hired someone to make you the most organized human on the planet. Now, this is a much longer conversation. He got tears in his eyes because he let go of something he had been holding on to his whole life that kept him smaller. I watched his chest come up, his shoulders went back. And I said, have someone come in your house, have someone organize your bills, and get great at what you're already good at, one more property. And I know that's a silly analogy, but I want to tell you right now, identify what you're good at and go all in on it. And eventually, if you're not already doing it, pay somebody to do the things you suck at. And that's how we get good, right? One more quick story. Ned Hollowell is an ADD specialist. Oprah called him the top ADD specialist in the world. He's been on Oprah 10 times. Harvard-trained, Harvard professor. He said, kids with ADD, I want you to hear this. He said, he is getting them off meds and getting them out of ADD. He said, and he used this analogy. He said, take Johnny. He's in the classroom. His teacher says, read this book. He can't read the book. Read this book. Stay in that seat until you read the book. Finally, Johnny gets up and running around. He doesn't just have ADD. Now he's got ADHD. He's hyper. He said the only reason Johnny feels that way is because he doesn't have the confidence to read. He feels inferior, and he's acting out in other ways. He goes, you know how I help Johnny? I get with his teachers, his friends, and his family. And I say, what's Johnny good at? Oh, Johnny's good at math, or Johnny's good at architect, or he's good at baseball. Let's help Johnny get one step up in baseball, one step up in math. Let's let Johnny get so good at math that his confidence starts to build. And fast forward 6 months, Johnny will be reading that book on his own. You won't have to tell him to do it. Because all Johnny did, because of his ADD, is everybody robbed his confidence. Let's give him his confidence back. We'll give him his life back. I get goosebumps talking about it. Yeah, so I want you to think about what are you working on in your life right now that's robbing your confidence? Listen, I'll give you 3 more quick ones. What are you working on that robs your confidence? Freaking stop, do it, go deeper and spend the time on something you're already good at and fine-tune that craft. Number 2, what are you watching or doing that robs your confidence? When's the last time you watched the news and felt really good about your life? Go on a freaking news diet. Try to stay away from the friends for a little while that when you talk to them, they tell you you should be happy, satisfied, stop being a dreamer. Anything in my life that robs my confidence, Ed, I slowly wean out. I just do. Right? I'm with you, Ed. If I spend 2 hours with you, we're sitting around a dinner table having a glass of wine, I leave, I feel like Superman. Yep. There's other people that when they call you, you look at your phone, you go, oh, should I answer this? Like, those people need to go. So just audit what robs your confidence, audit what builds your confidence, and do more of the stuff that builds your confidence.
I was just sitting here thinking, man, like, it is so cool that for just clicking a button right now, I'm not bragging about the show because it's you doing it, but like, For no money right now, people are getting this type of insight and information from multi-millionaires, right? It's just so awesome the way the world has changed. When you and I were young, you could buy Tony's tapes. That was about it.
That's about it. And get a Sony Walkman with big orange earbuds and listen to it. Yeah.
It's incredible. And now the depth of delivery of information from someone like Dean it's just remarkable. It's so good. One of the things that you are great at, to me, is influence. I just think, and you do it in such a way, man, where like it doesn't hurt receiving it. And one of the things that I want you to give everybody a little bit of insight of how they can be more influential, and then with it, because it's one of the things you do the best. Dean is not afraid, and he's worked with me on this actually, and about everybody else in this space. Dean's not afraid to ask for what he wants from a consumer, from a friend. And I think there's a lot of people out there that want to start a business or have a business, but they're afraid to ask for the sale. They're afraid to ask for the order. They're afraid to ask someone for their support. They're afraid to ask for some advice or coaching. You have developed, let's just be candid, like even me and Tony Robbins both have struggled with this, and you're like, guys, I'll help you with this, right? So either some of the people that are most influential in the world, they're influential, but they're not always as comfortable with the ask. So what's influence? How can someone become more influential? And touch on your belief system about why it's mandatory to ask for what you want and need, especially in the business world.
Great question, man. So first off, the first thing that's a must, everybody looks for a sales strategy. I'll tell you the number one sales strategy in the entire world. Absolutely love what you deliver to people that you feel bad if they don't use it. Now, you've heard that before, but I really want you to think about that. Love it so much that you feel bad if they don't use it. I mean, think about, Ed, what you've done for the world. You know how many people you have done a disservice to if you didn't decide to share what you know. Think about Tony Robbins, right? Tony's impacted my life, impacted your life, and so many of you listening right now. What if he didn't sell and get people to UPW, Date with Destiny, Business Mastery, and those types of platinum, all those pieces? So the first thing I do is, especially in the last decade, is I love what I deliver. I'll obsess on my books. If I get done with a book and I love it, the next thing I think about is I want you to hear this, I'm screwing people over if I don't get them to read my book. Not do I feel bad selling it to them, I'm actually hurting them if I don't get them to give me a credit card because I can't get them to read my book. They're going to go try to figure it out on their own. There's only two things can happen. They either try to figure it out on their own, they fail and give up, or they buy someone else's book who's better at sales but doesn't have as good a book as me and it doesn't do anything for them. So if I'm not getting them to give me the money, they're either going to do nothing or give someone else the money, and that's not acceptable for me. Right? So the foundation of good sales, I believe, and persuasion and influence is knowing that you're really impacting people with what you have. So I'm going to tell you right now, if you love what you do, take it up another notch and be obsessed with what you do. Be obsessed with the book, the product, the service, the company, whatever it is you do. Because then it's easy. Because then it's all a conversation of, am I helping people or not? The other thing I know too is in many cases, and you got to hear this, and I'm not the first one to say it, but hear it for the first time. People who don't pay, in many cases, don't pay attention.
So true.
Think about if you pay $0 for a live event, you just click on it and say, I'm going to go to a live event. Say Ed was doing a live event for free. You click on it and say, I love EdMyLETT. He's always doing something for us. Let's go. You got about a 35% chance you'd show up. That's just a fact. I know these numbers. Because it's free. Ed's awesome, but if I'm available, but I was going to go with my buddies mountain biking, I'm not sure. Spend $100 to go see Ed. About 60% of you will show up. Give Ed 50 grand to show up and he's worth every dime. 100% of you would show up. The more you pay, the more you pay attention. So are you doing them a disservice by charging them, or are you actually serving them at the highest level? Let me ask you something. If you want to start a business or scale your business, you can go get free information. You could try to learn on your own. But what if Ed said, you're in a higher level bracket, let's say, Ed said, $1 million, I'll mentor you once a week for the next 6 months. If Ed think about $1 million in a higher level business. Think how fast you could go, how Ed would be doing a disservice if not, how much it would actually cost you, and opportunity cost too, because you have the opportunity of giving up before you start. That would be the cheapest money you'd ever spend in your life, right? So I don't know if I nailed that, but I really want you to know that I
absolutely nailed it. And here's how I know you nailed it. It made an impact on me. Number one, first off, your data about the stats are true. My people that pay me the most money to get an hour with me are the ones who show up early even, right? Not only do they show up early. Some of the most influential people on the planet pay me a lot of money. And let me tell you something, they don't miss calls. They don't reschedule calls. That's the priority. I got to say this to you. My podcast is free. That means 1 week you'll listen to it. The next week you'll catch up on to. That's just the way it's true. But what you just said there is brilliant, and that even I needed to hear. What if you had a business, everybody, whatever your product is, what if you really believed, I am screwing people if they don't get this product from me. I am screwing them if they don't do business. Those of you that run sales teams or run a company of any type, you run a chain of dry cleaners, I don't care what it is. We are screwing people if they don't get their clothes cleaned here. We are screwing people if they don't do their mortgage business. We are screwing them if they don't come to our gym. We are screwing them if they don't get involved in my opportunity. What if everyone that was pouring out of their pores all day long, what would your organization look like? How would it function? What fears would go away? What certainty would people have when they communicate? Because the most certain person always influences the less certain person when there's rapport. That is, you didn't just nail that. That's like groundbreaking.
I want to share something, Ed. When you feel that way, I want to share this with everyone. Everybody wants the sales strategy, you should have them. If you want to get sales trainings for your team, you should have them. But when you believe it so intently, and there's social proof that says what we give people, it's the best dry cleaning, it's the best food, it's the best product, it's the best book, it's the best coaching program. When you believe it and there's social proof, your entire team believes it. They're not selling anymore. Selling, this is what you should write down, selling becomes service. When selling becomes service, you will never sell again a day in your life. And you will look through a lens where your sales and your marketing department will get the attention it deserves. The reason why I'm blessed to do more revenue than a lot of people who do things similar to me is because I'm obsessed with sales and marketing. But the foundation of that is I don't get to serve people unless they say yes. I got to tell you a quick story. Yeah. So I was on stage with about 4,000 business women. Amazing women, all entrepreneurs or wanting to be entrepreneurs. These women were lighting it up. And I asked that same question. Who in here who has some apprehension, a little scared, or downright hates selling? 90% of these women, these awesome women, raise their hand. And they all are there to scale their business. And simultaneously, unless they learn to love sales, their business will never scale.
Gosh, that's great.
Sales are the oxygen for every thriving company. Unless you want to be someone who just goes, raise money, raise money. I don't know how to do that. That's a different world. Somebody smarter than me does that. I've always built cash flow companies, right? So I always want to raise their hand. I pick on a woman, Ed, maybe 2 rows in. She had this sweet smile. I said, so tell me about your business. She says, okay, I have a coaching business. She goes, I help moms. She called it trimester 4. I had no idea after you have a baby, this 4th trimester messes with your emotions, your head. You don't think your husband looks at you in a good way. You feel like you're a mom. You lost your old life. Your body doesn't look the same, and it is painstaking. I went through it. I don't want women to experience that pain, and I coach them through it, and I make them beautiful and alive and sexy, and they see their worth again. She was glowing, Ed, talking about her coaching business. And I said, so she's like this, and I said, you don't like selling? And she shrunk. She goes, no. You know, I hate asking these moms for money. And I said to her, so I let her talk, and I said, so you really don't care, and you're screwing these poor women over? And she's like, well, what do you mean? No, don't say that. No, I love them. I said, all right, tell me about someone you changed. She told me a story about this woman, Mary, and she changed her life, and she was happy again. I talk about sales. So I said, listen, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I said, listen, is your service good? Yes, the best. Do you care? Oh my God, I love these women. Does it get them results? It will change their life. I said, then stop screwing them over. I said, because right now, there are women out there who need you. They're depressed. They're thinking of maybe suicide. They're thinking of leaving their husband. And the only reason you can't help them is because you're afraid to market and sell to attract them to say yes. And the only 2 things that can happen to that woman that you're afraid to market to is they suffer in silence, or they go to someone else who doesn't care as much as you. It's time to market so you can get them to say yes, so you can transform their life. The women in this group, it was a half hour, I'm paraphrasing it in 3 minutes, they erupted, Ed. When your mind shifts to service and you realize you can't impact it, then you figure out all the sales strategies. But if you're not figuring out next level sales strategies, deep down you might not like sales. Change your feeling about sales, change your business.
I think you lifted about 5,000 pianos off of every single person's back, because it takes this pressure off of you also. When you are unleashed like this, actually having to say the perfect word at the perfect time isn't always going to feel mandatory to you either, because your certainty is influencing to that extent. Man, I'm so grateful for you. I got 2 things left because we're going to run out of time. We literally, brother, we've almost been an hour. We could go forever, you and I. But I have to ask you a couple of things, because it's just curious about your opinion about this, because I've been navigating it. A lot of entrepreneurs listen to this, or they want to be entrepreneurs. And there's this new thing out there, not new, but there's this adage that, hey, millionaires have multiple streams of income, right? And sometimes I think myself that that's a fact that's not true. Although it's true that most millionaires have multiple streams of income, my experience is that most of those millionaires got great at one thing first, and then as they became millionaires, diversified their income streams to multiple streams. Why I ask this is, and I would really like your opinion about it, I see a lot of people doing 5, 6, 7 things, 3, 4 different things, trying to spin all these plates, but not really getting great at any of them. And I almost think to some extent that they would be better off if they got great at something. Same time, I understand the world today is a different world than it was 20 years ago, and I really don't know your opinion about this, and I'm curious as to how you feel about it. Should someone get great at what they're doing? You spoke about greatness earlier, or are you a believer they should have 4, 5, 6 different things going at any given time?
I think the biggest disservice you could do to a new entrepreneur is tell them that they should have multiple streams of income, because they'll never go deep enough on one thing, never go through enough pain and enough failure on the one thing that'll go deep enough to give them the breakthroughs to be able to do that later on in life. It's an absolute fact. And here's something before I get there, I want to say something. I love the fact of what this device has done for us, that you could log in and listen to Ed right now. I listened to Tony Robbins tapes when in 96, 95. I listened to Tony Robbins tapes, and when I got done, I ordered his Power Talk, and I'd wait for them to come every month. And I was searching for you to be able to have access in a second to Ed and Andy Frisella and Tony and so many great people out there. I love that part. But the other part where I think it's done a disservice to a whole generation is you think success is easy when it's brutally freaking hard. It is hard to have the success you want. It's hard to have a jet and freedom and extra houses. And it takes hard work and it takes time. And there's no shortcut. I don't care what anybody thinks. There's no shortcut. Maybe you could have bought Dogecoin and you got lucky. That is the rarest thing in the history of the world. Ed and I bet we agree. I don't even know. Neither one of us probably invested in crypto when all of our friends said to, because we didn't know it, we didn't feel it, and we missed it. So I'm so blessed if you did for you, but that's not where true wealth is made. You have to work 50% harder than you think you do. You have to get kicked in the teeth more than you think. You have to get questioned by your friends and family and look like the dreamer twice as much as you think. The people you thought were going to support you aren't. Some people are going to talk behind your back. Some friends are going to leave you, and guess what? It's worth every freaking penny. It's worth every moment, every disappointment. There was a gentleman named David Kekich. I met him. He was paralyzed from the neck down. And not always paralyzed. I think it was a jogging car accident. And he had these Kekich credos. It was like a business card that folded out. And one of his Kekich credos, to make him positive, most positive guy you ever met, couldn't move anything below his neck, one of them was, living the hard way is easy, and living the easy way is hard. So before I answer this about multiple streams of income, I think it's really important I tell you this. Living the hard way makes it easy. It was hard when my friends were partying every single. I still had fun, don't get me wrong. But when I was getting up at 5 o'clock going to work every day, my friends were like, "Oh, you're crazy. We come from a small town. It's blue collar. I grew in a similar town as you did. All my friends were going to be mechanics or construction workers, and if they're lucky, they worked for IBM, right?" And when they told me that I was crazy for doing it, when I worked 7 days a week, when I borrowed money, when I used to take credit cards and apply for 10 at once so I could get the money and use that money and leverage it and go buy a junky piece of property and fix it up every night. I'd work on cars during the day. I'd drive a tow truck at night, and I'd work on my houses at night. I'd put 20 hours a day. Everybody, my sister, my family, my friends thought I was insane. I was nuts. I was a dreamer. People without educations, without money, they don't really get there. What were my chances? If you looked at the percentages, you wouldn't bet on me if you were in Vegas. But I knew. I took the hard path. Didn't know I was. But I took the hard way. But now I get to be the dad I want. I take my kids to school every day. I coach Little League. I coach softball. I can jump on a plane and go to New York and go to my farm in New York and spend time. It looks beautiful now, but I put the work in. None of it was handed to me. Now, I'm not saying me, but it's easy to sit on the couch, order pizza, and binge out on Netflix. That's easy. It's hard when you're 60 and you got diabetes and you can't play with your kids. It's easy in today's world to go hit up the girl you used to hang out in high school and be unfaithful and nobody will ever find out. It's easy to do now. It's really hard when the fan and you're alone when you're 70 years old. I know that might sound harsh, but I think through all of this. So first off, I want to tell you, live the hard way now. Make the smart decisions now so you can live easy and have choices that you want. You know how many baby boomers I meet that took a job that seemed easy and a nice 401k and they're 62 years old going, I just wasted 40 years of my life building someone else's dream and I have my own. Help me, Dean. And I want to help them, but they didn't take the hard way. So take the hard way, work hard with things. Secondly, multiple streams of income are absolutely amazing once you crack the code, once you have something steady from one thing. I'll give you Tony Robbins, for example. Number one personal development guy. I don't think anybody will ever reach his height of success. I don't think anybody will leave the legacy that man's going to lead. Do you know he was 48 years old before he invested in another company? And it's because when he was younger, he used to hang out with billionaires. He coached a lot of these guys when he was in his 20s. And he was on a jet with really successful people. And they're talking about all these different businesses they have, but they were in their 60s. He was in his early 30s. And he's like, man, I'm working my tail off on one business. These guys are flipping companies and making billions. And a guy said, one of the guys on the plane, I think it was the second richest man in Canada, said to him, all in your own time, man. Go deep on your company. When your company is paying, then you can take the money from that company and there'll be a time in your life where you can start investing in other companies. But don't do that until you go deep, till you know it, till it becomes bulletproof. Tony was almost 50, Ed, before he started investing in other companies. Now he has multiple streams of income, but he went deep and mastered what he'd done. And here's the last thing I'll tell you. When you master something, doesn't mean you have to stick with it forever, right? I mastered real estate. I got really deep, but all those principles I learned in mastering real estate, in hiring people, and running businesses. I took that and they lent great for my next companies.
Yeah. I 1000% agree, and that's exactly what I did. I built one thing for a very long time. Then I diversified into all these other businesses. This is one of the best conversations I've ever had. I'm just telling you straight up. It's because it's so wide ranging. Well, I started the show. I told you I'm not going to tell you what we're going to talk about. I said we were going to, and you just crushed this. I got one last question for me. The audience gets to listen because we're friends. So this one's just for me. But everyone can hear it. This is a hard one. So this is one of those like really tough ones because I've asked myself this recently. What did you used to believe pretty passionately about life or business that you no longer believe? In other words, my favorite people are people who change their minds. I love when people who never change their mind, I think, really, all the new information, all the experience you've got, all the wisdom, all those successes and what you think are failures or setbacks in your life, you've changed your mind about nothing that matters, nothing at all in your life has changed. So it's a really hard question, and I don't know if anything even occurs to you. But is there something you used to really believe? Like for me, it was. I used to really believe that most rich people got there through some ill-gotten means. I don't know why. I just sort of believe they must have
Because
done.
you're part Italian and you grew up on the East Coast. That's what everybody
We
believes.
all believed it, right? And by the way, that belief system caused me to not want to be one of these people subconsciously, unconsciously for many, many years. I think it was one of the things that held me back. And then I also thought for a while, well, then it flipped and I kind of had this epiphany. But then if I have a ton of money, I'll have no problems. Well, that turns out that's not true either, right? There's issues. But so I've altered my belief